Welcome back to my channel, my friends. As title stress, let's talk about if you have no software development experience or background, can you really build just with AI? Well, I was inspired to share my thoughts on this topic because nowadays we've seen lots of tweets and YouTube videos about one-person AI company, a computer, a chip, couple of LLMs and AI agents, a desk, and a chair. So you can pretty much create a digital products on your own. And recently, China's high-tech zone even rolled out 15 hard-hitting measures to support open cloud-like AI agents. We call it racing robusters. And those one-person AI companies can get up to $1.5 million of capital. Sounds really promising, right? Social media also makes everyone feel success can happen overnight. Like someone vibe coded the software or mobile app by himself with no tech experience and sold it for blah blah amount of dollars. But how many of us have had this experience? You just open cursor interface, but you have no idea what to do. But behind these social media filters, is it that simple? I think the answer is absolutely no. But I'm not telling you it's completely impossible because it depends on what you want to build and what your objectives are. I'm currently working as data engineer in finance. I do have a tech background, but not in software development. So I want to share the reality with you based on my experience, what you can and cannot do. If you currently cannot make it, how you can make it in the future. So here's the first group of people, those who don't have a tech experience at all. And this means you've never been exposed to concepts like a front end, back end, how they communicate, web service, and APIs. You may have no experience in coding either. Perhaps you know a little bit Python or SQL. A friend of mine is in this category. Once we were discussing this topic, she told me you still need a lot of tech experience to make a mature product because one day she spent so much time fixing a feature on the web page, but it turned out the local platform led her further and further away from what she wanted. I strongly disagree with her until I got my hands dirty to build one on my own. Now, I believe her opinion is true because I'm currently building a software with my Italian friend. We're targeting small and medium-sized Italian companies in proxy advisory industry. Only until I went through the building process and solved many technical issues can I realize one thing. People from social media saying you need zero tech background to build a product because they never put themselves into your shoes. They have a smooth cooperation with agentic AI, so they assume you should feel the same. But they can never taste the flavor of building with no experience because many of them have lots of experience. And I guarantee the process can be annoying, painful, and full of friction at some point. So always be careful about who you're listening to. Back to the first group of people, the realistic expectation is that you can vibe code some tools that are not so technically and functionally complicated, that solve the pain point in the workflow for yourself or your colleagues. To name you some good examples, status checker, deadline dashboard, internal request form, daily checking tools, and many others. These are simple to build with local no-code platforms like Lovable, but if you like challenges, pick up agentic AI coding editors, Cursor AI, GitHub Copilot, Cloud Code. Plenty of tutorials are out there on YouTube. They teach you from scratch how to use them, starting from installation. Around a year ago, I joined the Chinese AI builder community. What I learned from members' experience is that most zero tech background beginners were a bit scared or intimidated when seeing Cursor's programming interface, which is a very engineering type and not straightforward like local no-code websites. But those who overcame the barrier at the initial stage benefited most from agentic AI's leverage effect. They could never imagine one day they could build web applications. Well, I think you can build this level of tools with no technical background at all. It's not so realistic if you want to build mature products that are scalable and sell them to the market. I'm not saying it's impossible, but you need to invest a large amount of time and effort and go through lots of trials and errors to turn it into possible. You need to have very clear objectives. You know, software development is a path you want. You're dedicated to bridging the knowledge gap. If you're the second group of people, you are in a much better position. I'm in this category too. So you have coding background and technical experience. Perhaps you've been working as data scientist, data engineer, machine learning engineer for some time. You have good knowledge in at least Python and SQL. You are very familiar with different IDEs and have solid understanding of databases. This means reading code from a new coding language is not like learning an alien language, but speaking a dialect. Then congrats, you're one step away from success because I think AI's function as leverage can be maximized for this type of people. Imagine reaching a mature product level. Professional software developers are here and we are here. they are lifted to this level, but we are gonna jump to the top. It's very promising, but be prepared for a lot of pain and friction. After all, you have no previous exposure to software development. Let me tell you my story. In one of the projects I've done, I built end-to-end Python pipelines to automate menu and Excel-based regulatory metrics calculation. Pipelines were running in VS Code by my team. One day, I decided to fetch a GUI, add front end, back end, and API to make this project into software so everyone can get the results by clicking buttons on the web page. This is the architecture from agentic AIs in GitHub Copilot. I have database saved in local machine. The upstream backend is end-to-end Python pipelines. The front-end tools are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. To make front-end and back-end communicate with each other, Flex API is deployed. Then, AI agents started to fill this architecture with more code snippets as I added more features. This is how I got stuck one day. I understand data structures well. I wrote Python pipelines, though I'm not so fluent in front-end languages, at least I can read and understand what they are doing. But I don't have any knowledge in back-end APIs and servers. It's not entirely like black box for me, but still, at some point, I was testing website, trying to click buttons to see if every feature works. But surprisingly, no result was returned. Then I didn't even pause to figure it out by myself because I had no idea if the issue was from back-end or front-end or API or whatever. I immediately reported the issue to Agentic AI in the chat panel, asking it to debugging it for me. I wrote a prompt. AI agents were in the syncing mode for quite some time, scanning through all relevant snippets and trying to detect the root cause. However, it didn't solve the issue, so I tried it over and over again. Around 15 minutes passed, then guess what? I simply didn't activate the back-end server. I know it sounds a bit stupid. How long does it take to turn on the server? A few seconds versus 15 minutes. That's the cost of not knowing fundamentals. Honestly, if I had software development fundamentals, it shouldn't have been an issue at all. If problems are from Python pipelines, I could simply fix them by myself without delegating them to AI. It will be much faster because I have 100% ownership of the context and my intuition will tell me where it goes wrong. These are things that cannot be replaced by AI. But if problems are caused by other parts of this architecture that I'm not so familiar with, I will be overly dependent upon AI for the debugging purpose. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I believe in most cases, you should let AI handle the dirty work, but in some cases, a bug may take several prompts to fix. You will risk increasing the context window, then you may be wondering why AI is getting dumb and forgetful. Anyway, I still eventually managed to code this web application, but with pain and friction. So how do you reduce them? I mentioned earlier in this video, you're only one step away from success, and that step is called picking up software development fundamentals as much as you can by using AI. Here's a prompt I used to squeeze some relevant online courses from it. It covers context, my technical background, information, and my objectives. But please bear in mind that learning fundamentals doesn't require you to become very professional in that domain. You'd better be a generalist or a big picture thinker because all trivial technical details, the heavy coding part, all the dirty work will be handled by agentic AI. What's left for you is to understand the architecture, the system, a bunch of front-end and back-end tools. You may not be able to write complicated code, but you should be able to understand what functions every code snippet can achieve, and if there is any dependency within the code. I've already put myself on this learning journey for some time, so being there, done that, I truly feel building with AI is getting easier. I know what each part of the code is doing without drowning myself into details. When an issue occurs, I can pretty much judge where it comes from, front end, back end, or they just don't communicate properly because of the back end API. I'm feeling more and more control, and the black box is gradually turning into transparency. We shouldn't just stop here if your goal is to sell the software product to the market, because apart from technical knowledge, you also need to learn marketing, sales, writing, etc. There will be very different topics, and I didn't mention how you define the problem, how you find people's pain point or needs, because without that in mind, you don't even know what to build. And this points to the scenario I mentioned in the beginning part of this video, which also happened to me a couple of times. You open Cursor AI or whatever, but you have no fucking idea what to do because you don't have ideas in your brain. Without problems to solve, AI is just like a tool, like a hammer or a lighter. I believe AI age age is like the second renaissance when everyone can have a chance to ground their ideas with such a powerful leverage. But let's be realistic. Remember, no matter how much experience you have, the building process always comes with some inevitable pain and friction. I'm on this journey and I will always be on this journey. At least try to make a little bit of progress per day. At least I know I need to turn on the server before testing the GUI. I hope I've made my thoughts clear. I will see you in the next video. Bye.